No, they're going to mark black because they're black.
Well, they're half black and half white. They're both, right? So it is true. You overlook
Yes, I'm half black and half white.
you
I'm black.
overlook interracial students. But why? What do you mean? Why are you saying they're going to mark black because they're black?
In this dramatic episode of Dr. Phil, Candace Owens, a conservative commentator, debates the contentious issues of social justice, affirmative action, and race with a professor and other guests. According to Owens, rather than fostering equality and harmony, race-based policies such as affirmative action frequently work against the people they are intended to support, causing divisiveness and unintentional prejudice. The argument is around whether accomplishments should be evaluated based on race or merit, with Owens and her supporters emphasizing accountability, self-control, and hard effort as the true paths to success. The conversation expands to include a critical analysis of woke beliefs.
Boy, let me start with you. Is it possible for white people to be discriminated against because they are the majority and discrimination involves power? Is it possible?
Absolutely. It is unequivocally possible. It happens all the time. This actually happens not only in specific instances, but this happens in a systemic way on our most elite college campuses. And I would also say that this is happening not just in education, but in the workplace.
Well, is it justified though? Because if there has been disparity and if there has been discrimination, if there have been minorities that have been excluded for years and years and years and years, is this the way to start to bring some balance and diversity back to those universities and workplaces?
Absolutely not. Affirmative action has been going on for over 50 years, so this has been happening for a long time. And even now, we've actually seen that it's gotten worse in the sense that race relations are so poisonous, and many people on college campuses actually feel like, because of all of this that's happening, they feel like they're being pitted against each other.
Doctor, what do you think?
Well, I think I would very respectfully disagree. I certainly don't think that white people are disadvantaged in college admissions. In fact, I would say it is the exact opposite, which is why there are policies and practices in place now to try to alleviate the historical burden. It's like if you ever played Monopoly before, right? Imagine like you have a person who's playing Monopoly and they get to go around multiple times, right? And then like halfway through the game, someone gets to enter into the game. And then because they get a turn, right, then the accusation is, well, somehow.
Dr. Phil clarifies the contentious topic of reverse racism, which holds that laws that favor minorities put white people at a disadvantage. This discussion looks at how opponents of affirmative action and other racial discrimination policies contend that by giving preference to one group over another, these policies create a new form of discrimination. Critics contend that rather than fostering equality, these regulations widen societal divides, igniting a national conversation about how to strike a balance between the need to right historical wrongs and guaranteeing that everyone is treated fairly and according to their merits.
The accusation, what we would say is reverse racism, we really just view it as what we call race lighting. Race lighting is what happens when gaslighting is racial. And essentially, if you look historically, colleges and universities have prioritized admissions for students who are white. Why is that? When you admit a student, it's oftentimes based upon their grades, high school grades, and your test scores, ACT and SAT, which are being phased out due to COVID-19. But if you think about it, the SAT and ACT have historically measured access to resources, the neighborhood that you grow up in. It is not a measure of a student's drive, a student's motivation. It is really a measure of their access. And ultimately, we know that when things measure access, they really measure white privilege.
With an emphasis on how race affects educational and career possibilities, Dr. Phil and his panel discussed whether success should be measured by race. According to some participants, affirmative action and similar programs are necessary to rectify historical injustices and give underrepresented groups equitable chances. People like Candace Owens, on the other hand, contend that success ought to be based on individual accomplishment, and that highlighting race in success metrics simply serves to widen gaps and undervalue the contributions of individual work and knowledge. This conversation brings up important issues of inclusion, justice, and the best way to create a society that is truly equal.
I'm of mixed background. What am I supposed to mark on an application? Am I supposed to mark multiple boxes? And plus, if you are painting people as an oppressor, if you're white,
That's
and
a
then
terrible
saying
thing to
that
tell
you're
somebody.
oppressed,
Well, it's the
if
truth
you are
because you believe in
color,
affirmative action. So I said, mark black. If you're a
Then-
student, I'm in an interracial relationship, so I can speak to this. I have a son that's half white and a son that's half black and a daughter that's half white and half black. they're going to mark black, because I know that there are people like you at the universities who will say, well, because this person is black, I'm just going to let them in.
No, they're going to mark black because they're black.
Well, they're half black and half white. They're both, right? So it is true. You overlook
Yes, I'm half black and half
so
white.
you
I'm black.
overlook
That's how it works.
interracial students. But
So
why?
what do you
mean? Why are you saying they're going to
I've
mark black
socialized
versus
them in
black?
society.
So the answer is, if you can't, I mean, you can mark both. Can you mark both? I don't know if you can.
Yes.
What are you going to look at that applicant as, a little bit less because they're half white? How do you guys figure that out?
How they look at it is, again, holistically
I
across
love
a
that.
number of
I
different
love a
factors.
buzzword. I love me a buzzword. Holistically and racial consciousness.
Oh yeah, reverse discrimination is a
It's not
buzzword.
racial discrimination, it's just discrimination. It's just racism if you're judging people on the basis of their skin color. I don't know why this is so difficult. I mean, you have to go through an extraordinary amount of school. You almost have to have a PhD to not be able to.
Affirmative action measures, according to Candace Owens and her supporters, can hurt Black children by putting them in classroom settings where they can encounter obstacles for which they are not quite prepared, which could result in academic difficulties or setbacks. They contend that by prioritizing race over credentials, these practices give kids a false sense of achievement that can have a detrimental impact on their confidence and performance. Owens maintains that selections for educational and professional opportunities should be determined on the basis of talent, effort, and qualifications rather than race. Her viewpoint supports the idea that a more unified and fair society can only be achieved by prioritizing individual accountability and equal opportunity over ethnic considerations.
Are we compromising standards
Yes.
if we do that because we haven't fixed the problem down the line?
That's correct. It is, the policies are harmful also to the people that they purport to help. And we have all of the evidence there to look at. When you artificially place a Black American into a school in which they do not belong based on their knowledge, doesn't mean that they go on to get A's. In fact, there was a Black adjunct professor, you guys have definitely heard of him, Dr. Thomas Sowell, who was teaching at Cornell University, and he found that
great Thomas
the
Sowell.
majority of the Black American students that were there were on academic probation. Now, these students were some of the smartest in the nation, but because they were artificially placed amongst their peers at Cornell University, they were failing on academic probation. These policies have never helped Black Americans. It's just basically policies that are put in place to make people feel good, right? I feel like I'm doing something, when in fact I'm actually creating harm. You either know the answers or you don't.
When you say, hey, we have Black students at a particular school who aren't performing at that school as well, the immediate assumption that you're making is, well, maybe it's because they're not smart enough, they're not good enough, or they don't belong here. Whereas it could be about the experience that they're having at that institution. Professors who believe that they're not intelligent enough, that they don't have the capability to do the work, that they see them as criminals, deviants, dangerous, up to no good, or they talk about them with the they statements. They're lazy, they don't care, they don't really belong here. They're only here for the financial gain.
I'm giving you actual facts.
No,
right?
I'm giving you actual facts based on extensive
say, well, maybe they
research
just
that's
don't
been
feel
done.
good, but that's not the case. I mean, I went to university. I did not feel good, right? I didn't pull the best grades in high school. Probably got into a better university than I should have gotten into based on my performance in high school. It wasn't because of my feelings. It's because I wasn't focused on it, and that we're talking about a cultural problem. What's going on back at home, as was in my circumstance. And none of that is because of institutionalized policy. It almost seems like you guys refuse to accept that, Black students aren't performing well. You feel like you have to have this burden of responsibility, when in fact, if you actually wanted to help, you would look at the facts, re-examine the fact that it's not helping anybody. It's not helping Black Americans to artificially place them into universities, and you'd make effective change.
But you're making the assumption that Black students are academically inferior, and they're not.
No,
They're
you
some of
are
our
actually.
most brilliant students
that's
that we
the
have.
basic. No. That you are making the assumption that they are inferior.
You
It
just
is
said that
why
they
you
don't
want
belong there.
policies. I'm talking about the students that are based on the policies that you are defending right now, saying that we should have these policies that let them into these universities, not based on their skill set, but based on the color of their skin. So you are assuming that they are inferior.
Comedian Tyler Fisher claims he has been turned down by 3 agencies because they said they just weren't looking for white men to book at this time. Tyler, thanks for being here.
Thank you. I do identify as a Latino female now, so just adjust my pronouns. Yeah. So I've been in the entertainment business for 17 years, and I think what we're not talking about is children right now. Thank God I had about 5 years where this was not happening, where race was not pounded over your head. This is
Professor
destroying
looked upset.
people's lives.
Yeah.
The manager that told me, I can't work with you because you're white, he was a pawn, And so it's so sad, because I feel so bad for kids who won't have that chance. They're going to go, oh, I'm told I'm white, so I'm not going to go for it. You know, what would you say to a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old, no matter what their race is? Should you, like, what would you actually tell them? You know, should you give your job up? And let me ask you directly, do you think it was justified for me to be told, we can't represent you, you don't have the chance to now compete for jobs because you're white? Yes or no? Was that okay or was that not okay?
I think that what is described by you.
Don't give me your little
Well, no,
like,
let me
bubble
finish.
wrap.
What
Yes
is
or
described
no?
by you?
Straightforward.
Someone
Come
telling
on.
you that you can't get that job because you're white does not.
The conversation expands to cover criticisms of cancel culture, awakened ideas, and the growing tendency in society to view problems primarily from a racial perspective. Participants worry that because opposing viewpoints are regularly discounted or branded as objectionable, this viewpoint exacerbates divisiveness and inhibits free speech. The claim that placing too much focus on identity-based factors undervalues merit and promotes tokenism rather than actual equality is another reason why universities and companies are criticized for putting diversity above competence. This strategy is thought to be detrimental to creating an atmosphere that is equitable and full of opportunities for everyone.
The other day, and they said, are you doing the next show? And I said, yeah. The guy said, I didn't know you were gay. He said, this is a gays only show. And so that's why Hollywood sucks right now, by the way, because they're not hiring based on talent. What do we do about heart surgeons, airplane pilots? Like, how far do we want to go with this? Do you want the best heart surgeon, or do you want somebody who you think may have had it bad as a kid, or maybe their great-great-grandfather? I mean, it's ridiculous.
I think it's important to state how affirmative action actually harms everybody involved. So when you put a black student on a campus or put them in a job and you've given them, preferential treatment in order for them to be there, you've actually robbed them of knowing they've gotten an opportunity based on their own merit. So they're questioning themselves and their place in the environment. And for all the non-people of color who are surrounding them, they now get to look at any person of color and go, I don't know whether or not you got this job based on merit or based on preferential treatment. And I know this to be true because I'm a biracial woman who has those thoughts now because of the culture that we're living.
The argument heats up as opponents of woke ideologies argue that by emphasizing identity over individual success, these views undercut meritocracy and ultimately result in mediocrity. They contend that these methods undervalue diligence and responsibility, promoting reliance on outside variables like gender or ethnicity rather than one's own abilities and efforts. They contend that by focusing on imposing fake equality at the expense of merit-based achievement, rather than praising talent, this upsets social peace. These philosophies have come under fire for encouraging a society in which people take less accountability for their deeds and contributions. What do you think about this urgent matter? Leave a comment below with your opinions.